Okay, I had a bit of a problem recording and I lost footage, so I hope this makes sense. I had this battery pack and the phone ran out of batteries and nothing got saved, so I wasted 20 minutes talking to a recording that didn't finish. Now, I had this book here and I had read out some definitions and just go through them again. So this word here, harbinger. Okay, so harbinger is one of the words that I wanted to explain before we got into the video. Harbinger, H-R-B-I-N-G-E-R. One that provides or gives lodging. An officer of the English royal household who precedes the court when travelling to provide lodgings, etc. A forerunner, a precursor, a note, a warning, an omen of the future, which is kind of pertinent because that silver dollar went up to $137 an ounce over Christmas and then dropped down to 110. Would that be an omen of the future? Would that be a warning that you're about to enter into a financial collapse? A financial collapse? So, omen. 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 A sign of some future event. Divine. To augur. A-U-G-U-R. A-U-G-U-R. Augur. Not to be confused with auger, A-U-G-E-R, a knave, a carpenter's boring tool, somewhat like a gimlet. Augur, A-U-G-U-R, one that pretended to foretell future events by singing, flight and feeding of birds. A soothsayer, to foretell, to betoken, to conjecture by signs or omens, to prognosticate. So an omen of the future. We bring this up because there are warning signs in relation to that future. That future. Now, we're going to get into a video. I'm not going to try and rehash the 10-15 minutes that I lost. We'll just jump straight into the rest of the video, and then hopefully next time nothing crashes and we don't lose the data and we can continue and start to structure something that we can do for this year, this solar year, 12 lunations of the year. So we'll keep going with our definitions. We'll keep looking at the foundations of the world, the realm, the earth, and then hopefully you'll start to wisen up as to the solutions while you rapidly scramble to repair the things you've already done. And I mean, most of you are, oh well, let's launch out and go into courts. We'll fight them in their battlefields. It doesn't work like that. And you'll start to realize this as that silver dollar becomes that harbinger of the future. Now, while we're running low on batteries, back to this book here that most people don't know what it serves or does. We'll go to Proverbs 25 here. Now, I brought this up because at the beginning of this year, it's going to demonstrate something that you are or lack or need or require in the coming years, because this silver dollar situation, we warned you before Christmas, we warned you last year, we warned you that they would poison you, we warned you about their digital ID, we warned you about the prison that you live in as prisoners of war, captive to a bank, to a reserve bank, an international monetary fund. So we look here for the rules that surround that game. Chapter 25. These are also proverbs of Solomon, which the men of Hezekiah, king of Judah, copied out. Solomon, sun and moon. Solomon. It is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. So this allegory, this parable, this book here, laid out something that was for the enlightened or illuminated to be able to decipher. So there's a whole precursor of things that you might need to know in relation to searching out a matter. It is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter, to discover or decipher that thing concealed. Now we know from Luke 1, just go to Luke quickly here, Matthew, Mark, Luke. For as much as many have taken in hand to set forth in order a declaration of those things which are most surely believed among us, where two or three stand, they see the same thing together, surely believed among us, even as they delivered them unto us, which was from the beginning, were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word. The honor of kings is to search out a matter in the order declared. The heaven for height, and the earth for depth, and the heart of kings is unsearchable. Take away the dross from the silver, and there shall come forth a vessel for the finer. It's telling you to do things here. Take away the wicked from before the king, and his throne shall be established in righteousness. Take away the wicked. So what does it mean by wicked? Does it mean the ego-driven tards around us that constantly want to be the winner, the wiener? Wicked. Literally rendered evil. Wick, evil, weak, allied to weak, evil in principle or practice, addicted to vice, immoral, sinful, mischievous, the wicked Bible, a Bible printed in 1632, which omitted not in Exodus 20:14, the wicked one, the devil. Exodus 20:14. We'll go there quickly, just so we can correlate these things. 20:14. Thou shalt not commit adultery. The wicked Bible removed the word not. Thou shalt commit adultery. That would be wicked, wouldn't it? So the wicked around us, would that be the Desi Freemans, the tryhards? Would that be all the get-out-of-finers, the lawtards, to have no honour? But the honour of kings is to search out a matter. Do you do that in law, or do you do that in something that existed before the law was created? Take away the wicked from before the king, and his throne shall be established in righteousness. Now, if we went to Luke, in the order of things they were declared. So we can see here that the wicked, the sinful, the debtors, the dumb, stupid, continue believing in their egos and fail to search out a matter or decipher or see the parable that is being spoken about. For better it is that it be said unto thee, Come up hither, than that thou shouldest be put lower in the presence of the prince whom thine eyes have seen. For better it is that it be said unto thee, Come join us. Stop playing with those wicked ways, that law-tarding and that stupid ego-driven you're better than everyone else because you know how to do what. And Desi Freeman proved very clearly the ignorance or stupidity of knowing how a courtroom worked. They don't know how these things work and therefore get frustrated and show their wickedness in that process. Go not forth hastily to strive, lest thou know not what to do in the end thereof, when thy neighbour hath put thee to shame. Go not forth hastily. Don't rush, because when you get to the end, it's going to be very obvious that you don't know. And that's when your brethren or neighbours will mock you, like Desi Freeman. You're a hero until you're not. And that's because you rush to try and comprehend or understand or learn, and in that process you fail to grasp the concepts that are being shown to you, or you miss key puzzle pieces along the way, and you can't complete a puzzle if you haven't put all your border pieces in first. And then if you're missing a piece in the box, you're without knowledge. You rushed to the end and then proved yourself an idiot, like Wayne Glue, like Desi Freeman, like a whole host of others in the last 20 years that have rushed, pushed their ego, driven some sort of wickedness for their own device or demise. Debate thy cause with thy neighbour himself, and discover not a secret to another. Not a secret. talk between your brethren about what you're being shown and grow that knowledge together in the honour of a matter that is being shown to you. The honour of kings is to search out a matter that has been searched out and has been shown forward to you. Lest he that heareth it put thee to shame, and thine infamy turn not away. Right? So, lest he that heareth it put thee to shame. That rushing for a solution that you get wrong and then are shown to be an idiot over and are put to shame. This rushing to know stuff instead of actually soaking it up in your brain and becoming knowledgeable is part of the problem of your current society, isn't it? Rush, 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 you're all better than. And that is the product of the Australian school curriculum. You're being brain trained to fight each other for your better than actually work together for common goal. And we talked about that in the video before Christmas and the New Year. What is common? What's a commonwealth? What's a common unity, community? All these things you have in common that might be the foundations to your world. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in pictures of silver. A word. Words. Diction. Diction. Words. As an earring of gold and an ornament of fine gold, so is a wise reprover upon an obedient ear. A wise reprover. So those that learn the obedient ear aren't rushing to discover things they get wrong all the time. They're working with their neighbours. They're doing things together where 2 or 3, God is with you. And that is because you see these things that are undeniable together. And when they become undeniable, so is a wise reprover upon an obedient ear. Reprover. Would that be to prove again? Well, that would mean this did something. And if this is 2,000 odd years old or 400 years old, would you not be proving again what was founded in those hundreds of years before you? And would that be the real foundations in your forefathers, your lineage that we've spoken about in the past? As the cold of snow in the time of harvest, so is a faithful messenger to them that send him, for he refresheth the soul of his masters, his lineage. Kick the tripod there. His masters. You cannot serve 2 masters, or you will love the one and hate the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. You cannot serve your country and the IMF at the same time. You cannot serve an administrator that is administering you out of all you are. You'll own nothing. Better get used to enjoying it, because you've argued for God knows how many years in front of me over who was better, while your entire economy collapsed and the government of the day poisoned an entire country's population from the seat of administrator under the rules of usufruct, Article 55, Hague 4, War on Land, the rules of engagement of a foreign administering power in your land. You cannot serve two masters. So is a faithful messenger to them that send him, for he refresheth the soul of his ancestors, his lineage, his allegiance. That would be something to do with a king and the honour of a king to actually search out this matter and reprove and send those messengers forth to show the rest of your countrymen. Whoso boasteth himself of a false gift is like clouds and winds without rain. There's a double meaning there, the rain. But a false gift, is that what you give when you don't know the foundations and you're still trying to work them out? And this told you not to rush. This told you that you were being a fool for believing in falsehoods instead of discovering together and witnessing, because 2 or 3, that would be you and 2 witnesses, wouldn't it? That would define what you put down as fact and truth. So a false gift is like clouds and wind without rain. By long forbearing is a prince persuaded, and a soft tongue breaketh the bone. By long forbearing, hard work, is a prince persuaded, persuasion, a prince, a king. Would that princehood be defined by a foundation, uncovered, discovered and defined? Forbearing was the word I wanted to look up. EF. Forever, forbidding, forbearing, patient, indulgent, long suffering. So hard work. A lot of hard work. By long forbearing, by a lot of hard work, is a prince persuaded, and a soft tongue breaketh the bone. So I don't have to talk harshly at you. It's just all these law-tard idiots that we mock. And we've discussed that. These people rush to a means to an end and fail because they stumble over their own ignorances. Hast thou found honey? Eat so much as it sufficient for thee, lest thou be filled therewith and vomit it. Now honey, the scripture, the word, because John came eating word, locusts and honey. Locusts are consumers, all of you, the RBA peddlers, the peddlers of borrowed time, borrowed money. That's all of you. And when you come eating honey, and you start to absorb these words, and you just repeat them for what they are without doing the discovery, then you're just vomiting those words back out. They mean nothing. There is no logic or foundation in what you speak because you can't decipher the parable that is being spoken about. And this is what you see in most churches. The vomit. They just speak from the book. They don't know it. Vomit. Whereas John the Baptist came eating locusts and honey. And that honey to John was sweet to hear, but bitter to swallow. right? And that's the crux of this honey story, is that it's a sweet preserver. And then when you accept and swallow these words, swallow your own tongue is the other saying here, you realize what idiots you are for vomiting this out. And I've seen it. People have taken these books into courtrooms and said, this is the law. Well, it's not actually. It's something that gave you a cornerstone to your constitution, which started that law. Constitution at chapter 3, can't remember. The judicature, the judiciary, the courtrooms. Withdraw thy foot from thy neighbour's house, lest he be weary of thee, and so hate thee. Stop telling everyone how to be. You don't have to be in your neighbour's house saying, do it this way and do it that way. You should be neighbours together that love each other enough to say, why don't you try this? Instead of telling each other how it is. Oh no, I'm better. Let's do the law-tard thing that's failed for 20 years because I've only come on the scene in the last 12 months and I know it all. We only need to look around YouTube at the amount of Australians peddling misinformation because they vomit what they take in. They don't comprehend it and they don't learn it, and it's not knowledge to them. It's vomit. They become so full of the word that they just know how to repeat it. A man that beareth false witness against his neighbour is a maul and a sword and a sharp arrow. Right, so don't go in and judge your neighbour's house or tell them what to do or spy on them or lie about them. You don't need to do these things. You just need to stand in your own house, estate, foundations with God, for your own family, and honour those families around you instead of being the dibber-dobber, the dog. The dog is what is generally talked about with criminals. You're a dog if you dob me in. Well, don't do that stuff. The police are the ones that have ruined your economy. The police are the ones that have human trafficked you on behalf of an administrating power managing your state's affairs. So at some point, do you realise this? Who's the dog? Confidence is an unfaithful man in time of trouble, is like a broken tooth and a foot out of joint. Confidence in an unfaithful man. You cannot serve two masters. You went whoring after all the other gods around you instead of serving your own, Judges 2:12. Be wary of thee, and so hate thee. You cannot serve two masters, or you will come to love one and hate the other. Do you love your administrator and their reserve bank peddlings? Or do you love your gods? Constitution 115, all debts shall be payable in reserve bank notes borrowed from the IMF so that you'll own nothing and peddle yourselves into a distress and a dire strait. You do that as a country. You do that as a people because of your selfishness to hoard those reserve bank notes. This is where we've lost our connection to the ground, the land, as towns and townsfolk, because those banks now run your councils and they don't give a crap about you, your neighbours, or your community. They drive it like a corporation, an administrator running an administration of a finance problem, wherein you have no say anymore. You gave up that say and gave it to an administrator who then uses your finances to pay for its administration. It doesn't use its own money. It's not out of pocket for running you. You're out of pocket for allowing it to occur. They take your money to pay for that administration. Confidence in an unfaithful man in a time of trouble is a waste of time. It hurts, like a broken tooth or a foot bent out of shape. As he that taketh away a garment in cold weather, and as vinegar upon nitre, so is he that singeth songs to an heavy heart. As he that taketh away a garment in cold weather, take away a garment from you so that you go cold, and as vinegar upon nitre, vinegar, nitre. So vinegar is obviously acidic and it eats. What does it eat? So we look at nitre here. A potassium nitrate, saltpeter, cubic nitre, sodium nitrate, cubic nitre, right? So saltpeter, salt, loyalty. Are you worth your salt? A pillar of salt, a pillar of a community of people believing in a foundation, loyalty, allegiance, salt. A potassium nitrate, saltpeter, so peter. We need to define this so that you can see Peter, Petra. Petrian, pertaining to a rock or stone. So potassium nitrate is a salt found in stone. And what that means is a pillar of salt, all this allegiance around a foundation stone. And as vinegar upon nitre, dissolving that allegiance, dissolving that community, giving it all up so that a bank or an administrator can manage it. So is he that singeth songs to a heavy heart. If thine enemy be hungry, give him bread to eat, and if he be thirsty, give him water to drink. For thou shalt heap coals of fire upon his head, and the Lord, all caps, shall reward thee. Coals of fire. Now, translation, star, fire. Coal, burning in the darkness. Coals of fire upon his head, and the Lord shall reward thee. Here, your foundations are found across the seas. You are a foreign power. Your foundations don't match the foundations defined by those ancestors, that lineage. The north wind driveth away rain, so doth an angry countenance a backbiting tongue, angry countenance, a counter. Oh, you're wrong! You can't be this! Oh, I've heard it for 20 years. I've watched it go forward and back like the waves of a crashing sea. I've watched time and time again people that look like fools disappear and new interests come along thinking they can push data that they have no knowledge of, and they too will fall and crash with the waves because they are unable to calm those waters like Peter told you to do. It is better to dwell in the corner of a house, it is better to dwell in the corner of the house top than with a brawling woman in a wide house. It's better to go and hang out in the corner there and work with your fellow countrymen than to argue with the church, the woman, in a wide foray, a battle. Reprove those foundations, and those administrators have no say. You are who you are through your lineage defined. A claim is sealed. A claim is defined. This is who we are, and you're not us. You can't be us. The stone of destiny has different coals around it than the stone of remembrance. They are two foundations, one being occupied and put under administration because you all enjoy putting your country into debt while you peddle around a Reserve Bank note that has in only 5 years turned from a 20th of a dollar into 1/100th of a dollar. It's currently sitting at $109 an ounce. So 1 silver dollar is now worth 1% and less than 1%. That RBA note is less than 1% of that silver dollar. This is a time where you'll collapse, and you've been warned, and there's nothing nobody can do. It was up to you to change your ways, and instead of changing your ways, you pushed your rabbit lortard around everywhere. And it never ended until Desi got shot by the ADF somewhere in a forest because the police didn't want any of that on the record. On the record. We'll ask the ADF to go in and do it. That'll be a militarised operation that doesn't need the police to come along and, what's the word? Define specifically their right to murder a man. So they got the ADF to do it. Your own army on your own land, attacking your own countrymen. Are they supposed to do that? What's an army if you're not it? What's a standing army if that's against the law according to the Bill of Rights, 1688? Right? It is better to dwell in the corner of the housetop, doing all of this stuff and defining that claim, than with a brawling woman in a wide house to continue arguing with an administrator government who's taken over your faith, your foundations, your constitution, your bank, your treasury, the IMF. Now, if you want to clarify this, what happened in Ukraine? Why did the IMF take over the debt in Ukraine? What were their stipulations on the Ukrainian government to take on that debt? Would they be similar to what you suffer in your own lands while they force immigration on you to divide and conquer you from it? Just like they did in Ukraine. So you can see, this is not about allowing people to run their own worlds. This is about the CIA and Mossad manipulating countries to topple governments so they can put in their own leaderships. It's happened time and time and time again at the hands of the CIA over the last 75 to 80 years of peacekeeping around the world while they occupy all those countries under the Hague and Geneva Conventions. As cold waters to a thirsty soul, so is good news from a far country. Good news. We recognize that you're right and those foundations exist under that administration. We recognize you as occupied people and prisoners of war to a banking cartel full of war criminals that have gone outside of their rules of engagement in the Hague and Geneva Conventions. This is only starting after 20 years of trying to show you these facts. It's only starting to sink into your minds as you realise your Desi Freemans have nothing. Have nothing to the point where the police put a false flag together for the third time, calling you all sovereign citizens, and murdered one of you to hold a narrative. To hold a narrative. A righteous man falling down before the wicked is as a troubled fountain and a corrupt spring. You that are actually learning and then go back to associating with tards, like Desi Freeman, are like a corrupt spring, troubled. The waters that you bring forth are false, lies. You rushed, thinking you could beat a courtroom without the foundations, and Christ said, wait until the final hour. But you spent all your time on Facebook, police Facebook, telling the police what you were going to do, and then got slammed by corrupt judges and magistrates in your own incompetence. Very, very clearly demonstrated by Desi Freeman. It is not good to eat much honey. So for men to search their own glory is not glory. I can go back and show you what Desi did. No glory. You strived for it and ended up with a bucket of shit instead. A bullet in the head. Remember the false flag shooting in Queensland? Oh, it's those sovereign citizens! Remember that false flag shooting in Victoria? Oh, it was those sovereign citizens! Remember Desi Freeman? Oh, it was those sovereign citizens! Who would continue to call loyal subjects of their country sovereign citizens? Would it be an occupying Zionist administering power that sat under a papal administration? 75 years of peacekeeping until they administered you out of all you were and started giving it away to the Aborigine. Using a minority population to dismantle who you are because you are a technical legal threat to the existence of this administration worldwide. But you sit on your hands and you allow it to occur. You allow Zionists to run everything, and all you can do is sit on the couch at home watching the news, throwing the newspaper out to TV. Oh, those fucking Jews again! Why are they doing this to us? Well, technically, they're not. You're allowing it to happen by doing it to yourselves, because you have no salt, no loyalty, no knowledge. You keep trying all of this Desi Freeman style stupidity. It is not good to eat much honey. It's not good to keep reading this and not absorbing it, and understanding it and working out what it does. We pointed that out in questions where I asked you what this was for. 99% of you haven't got a clue. And that's a sheer fact of the matter. You can't go, oh, he's wrong. Well, you don't know. So how can you say I'm wrong when I can put down things that you can't argue? Things that I've shown many, many people to get to this point where you're starting to realise all that law-tarding and arguing with the police and standing up in courtrooms while they change the law on you to stop you from doing it again is not honourable. It's dishonourable. And to call you sovereign citizens, why would a government accuse its own countrymen of being something they are not? You're subjects of the Australian Imperial Crown. You are not citizens. They hold you in that captivity and lie to you constantly, and you allow it to occur. He that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls. Right? He that hath no rule over his own spirit. So we're talking about spirit, rights, R-I-T-E-S. Your own soul, spirit and soul. So we get to this point where you're prisoners, captives, and you gave all of that up. You sold your soul to the devil and asked for those RBA notes. Please pay me more. And the sheer fact of the matter is that dollar is now worth 1% of what it was worth in 1970. 1%. That means that your ancestors were being paid $3, $4, $5, I think it was between $3 and $8 a day to be employed. You work that out today. That's $800 a day. And you're being paid 80, 100, 120, 130. That's a tenth of what you should be being paid. And when you look at what it buys, now you're down to 1%, 1/100th of what it's worth to spend. That's why a home's worth $1.5 million. And if that silver dollar goes up to $250 an ounce, your homes are going to be worth $2.5 million. And you'll be earning 1/250th of a dollar in your wage. The GDP stayed the same and your wage collapsed to 1% of what it was worth in 1970. 1%. Tell me how you're going to own things as a country when you have no value and that moneylender has signed up with all those Aboriginal tribes that were never one people. There were hundreds of tribes around the country that were at war with each other, have now been manipulated by the money masters to become the new debtor. And that filthy parish priest, Bob from the Anglican Church in Gosford, said, "Ha ha ha, give it to them." Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because the land underneath your feet is what you used as collateral for that loan. And that might explain to you why The Voice, referendum for a republic, treason, treason, treason by your politicians on a daily basis, and all of you just sit there twiddling your thumbs going, "Oh no, we don't want a republic," instead of charging them with the criminal offence of trying to undermine your constitution and take it away from you and turn it into something else. An act of treachery, an act of treason. But you don't recognise these things because you sit on your hands doing all these things like Desi Freeman showed you how to do, like Wayne Glue showed you how to do, and you got nowhere. Nowhere. Treason. RST. Treason. 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 The offence of attempting to overthrow or betray the government of the state to which the offender owes allegiance. Disloyalty, treachery, overt act of devising or compassing the death of a sovereign or members of a royal family, or levying war against the realm, or aiding and abetting the enemies of the realm, writing or publication of writings hostile to the safety and authority of the sovereign and the peace of the realm. Now we go back to the beginning. The offence of attempting to overthrow or betray the government of the state to which the offender owes allegiance. Now, let's take Pauline Hanson because we hate this muppet. Pauline took an oath to become a senator and then sat in the Senate and adhered to a foreign power in Israel over and above the government she serves, at which she took oath of office to, therefore being outside of office for being in treachery or treason to the office in which she serves. Now, any member of the Senate or the House of Representatives or the executive branch of government or the Federal Executive Council that has pushed The Voice or a republic over the years has committed that act of treachery to their very own office at which they are under an allegiance and oath of office to uphold that office. They are not upholding that office when they attempt to undermine the Constitution and their office by pushing the demolition of your Constitution either into a voice for a foreign power or a republic for a foreign power. And this really needs to be sunk into your heads, because you keep voting for what are considered to be war criminals that have gone outside of the rules of engagement they were obligated to follow. Forced medical procedure is a war crime. Medical experimentation is a war crime. Human trafficking is a war crime committed by these agents in government that attempt to undermine the government at which they serve or administer. So you start to see you are falsely, wholeheartedly trying to save yourselves by allowing them to destroy you. Pauline will not fix any of your problems. And that muppet Liberal, constantly pushing the anti-Semitism. What's a Semite? Would all those Palestinians be Semitic for being in a Semitic region? So being anti-Israel is not anti-Palestine, is it? So you need to look at the language these people use. And was it Friedrich Nietzsche said, the ones that silence you when you speak up about them, they might be your masters. I can't remember the exact quote. But be wary the ones that you can't speak about. Zionists! They're not Judaic. They're not Judaists. They're Zionists. They're not Jewish. They're Zionists. And when we look at current news affairs in this country, the IDF have been marching your own streets, and the government of the day should have arrested those soldiers for the war crimes they committed in Palestine, the IDF, and arrested them all when they entered the country as they were obligated to those Hague and Geneva Conventions. But instead of arresting all of those war criminal soldiers that murdered civilians under the rules of engagement, they allow them to police your streets. A foreign military now attacking you on your own soil. Israel. Do you wonder why the ADF and the IDF would attack you on your own soil? Who allowed that to occur in the first place? Who allowed a standing army, which is against the law, according to the Bill of Rights, to attack you and your countrymen on your own soil when it is a criminal offence? Oh, it's not a criminal offence. We set them up to do that so that they could shoot people in the head like Desi Freeman and then turn around and proclaim, oh, it was those sovereign citizens. No, it was you, an administering power, manipulating the states, manipulating the governments to your whim and keeping the people of this country as prisoners of war and using them for your own forced medical procedures and medical experimentation in your eugenics plan that was put into motion back in the 40s and the 30s. You haven't stopped. You've been doing it for 100 years and it's starting to come out. And the people have no power against guns, demonstrated by Desi Freeman. Their power is with the law. Their power is with their unity. Their power is in abandoning the Reserve Bank and returning back to their constitutional currency. It's a long road for all of you. I've got to this point where I can see collapse coming. At 1 to 137 on the silver dollar, it's inevitable. There is no fix. There is no return. You either give everything up and stand there like plebs, or you start to realise you've been played by people like Pauline Hanson, played by people like Rodney Carleton, played by people like Jackie Lambie. The list goes on. You could name every senator, Scott Morrison, Kevin Rudd. I mean, the list goes on. We look at Bob Hawke, the pedophile. Bob Hawke, that did the witchcraft with all of the police commissioners and high court judges. And this is where Heffernan said very clearly, if you found out what they were doing, you would have no trust in them whatsoever. The Parliament, the judiciary, the police, the army, you would have no trust in them whatsoever. And now you realise who they are, a foreign administering power holding you as prisoners of war under rules of engagement they fail to be obedient to. You might start to realise you have an opportunity to stop yourselves turning into a Weimar Republic. You had an opportunity to turn yourselves around and become united as a people. But instead of doing that, you continue to publish videos for your own egos because you like to peddle misinformation around and get out of fines instead of stand loyal as countrymen and push out what is a foreign power manipulating you and corrupting everything around you until you'll own nothing. So are you ready? Or are you getting ready to enjoy it, that owning nothing? So, rant over. It always flows for me when I get in this mode. But we said we would talk about something common book of prayer. Now, some of you would have gone to archive.org, Queen Elizabeth I, 1549, Common Book of Prayer. Just Google that on archive.org, download it and go through it. It's in ye old English and it's in Gothic print, so it'll be a bit hard to read. You can probably find a 1900 version that's linked to Australia, like I found a book from 1926, which defined very clearly the foundations laid down by your ancestors here. But when we look at this, who are you? What is your family? What aren't you allowed to do? What shouldn't you do, more to the point? Because if this is a commonality between all of you, it might be common not to fuck your grandma. It might be common not to fuck your daughter. It might be common not to marry your sister. It might be common in what's it called? The word is in the book. It escapes me right now, but at the back of the Common Book of Prayer, we start with that. There's a list of your family, lineage, heritage that you're not allowed to do things. And the reason for this is because the establishment of a family tree can't be crossed over. There are branches out. Right? And history, lineage, ancestry, carnality, patriarchy, matriarchy in some circumstances, all revolve around this. And then there becomes this second part, a genetics problem. Inbreeding, they call it. You know, like the old common joke for us was Ipswich, where they had a scar on their shoulder because they had their second head cut off. Now, I'm not having a go at people that live in Ipswich, but that was the joke 20 years ago. Inbreeding. That is done with because you follow a rite, R-I-T-E-S, which allows you to establish some sort of lineage, ancestry, a tree with branches, fathers and their daughters and their sons and their wives and this becomes your grandsons and your grandparents and your great. What's so great about that if you don't adhere to this structure? Now, genetically, the inbreeding leads to all of those sorts of problems that you see with your health, your structure, your skeletal structure, your outside structure, your facial features, your speech, and then the further down that chain you go, the worse it gets. So we avoid those things by rite, R-I-T-E, not R-I-G-H-T, a rite, a ceremonial rite, R-I-T-E. And then that's where the faith comes into play. Knowledge of the ancients would be a rite, R-I-T-E. So when we look at this common book of prayer, we have to start somewhere in a community so that you have families. And in the old days, it was the Joneses' farm and the Smiths' farm, and their family lived on the family's land. And you've lost that today. You don't have these estate figures that you stand in for generations. You abandon your grandparents and stuff them in old aged care homes and allow evil people to use their chemical warfare called drugs on your grandparents until they die, and you can wipe the floor of them, and then you end up kicking your children out of your home as fast as you can because you didn't take on this family for generations. You took on your children until they grew up enough to be able to be kicked out of the house so that you could go on your holidays. And you forgot about the faith that established some foundation over generations. And when you look at the Rothschild estate, they have the estate and land that has existed for over 400 years. Right? And by the constitution of their estate, women are not allowed to work. It's written inside a constitution over 400 years old to define that estate for that family who have banked you out of everything you own, while you hold nothing. Kick your grandparents out, kick your children out, end up there being all lonely and whatever, until the point where over generation you collapse. And then you rely on a 1/100th of a dollar RBA note to go and buy some bread. And you wonder why the milk's gone up to $5.50 for 2 litres when only 5 years ago it was $2. And you wonder why a steak's now worth $100 a kilo when 2 years ago it was worth $23 a kilo. You need to start thinking about what's happened to you, and you need to start thinking about what was common in your town. If you keep relying on a Rothschild gold, which is pushed around by a promissory note, a debt note, the RBA notes, you're relying on them to pay for everything while you do your sweat labour to have a slice of it, instead of you doing it together in your own gold and silver as a community and country on an international stage where your constitution said to America, we'll pay our debts in gold and silver. You said to England, we'll pay our debts in gold and silver. And then generations later, you said to England, we'll serve you wholeheartedly and blindly. And you end up where you are today. Zionists took over. Papists managed it all for 75 years of peacekeeping. Pay your debts, pay your debts. Here's a fine, we're going to human traffic you until you own nothing. And it's now this time to realise that the 4 seasons, the planets, these are 2 very large classical pieces that might relate to what's going on in here. What happened to your mind, your grace, your uniqueness? Vivaldi wrote the 4 seasons 400 years ago. What do you do? What do you do that will last 400 years? They did it based in God. Right? And when you look at your famous musicians, they're all talking about God. All of them. From Lenny Kravitz to Jimi Hendrix. God. God. What was Jimi Hendrix's album? Are you experienced? Have you ever been? I don't think you have.